first. Well, they all had. It was only being so busy looking after baby Alice, the new addition to the family, that had kept Olive's mind from conjuring up what could have befallen Drew that night, and that really didn't bear thinking about. Tilly adored him so much, she would have been devastated if even a hair on his head had been damaged. No, thought Olive defiantly. This time her domestic arrangements were her own concern, and not up for debate whatsoever with Nancy Black.
So, I said to Mrs. Denver, you know, the woman who lost her husband when he was on fire watch in the Blitz.
Yes, of course I know, Mrs. Denver. Olive, growing impatient, cut off Nancy's diatribe in mid-sentence, knowing she would only repeat the awfully tragic story of Mr. Denver being blown to smithereens on the roof of a dockside warehouse, and whose remains were never found, even though they had all been with Mrs. Denver when she received the terrible news.
So, I said to her,
It was obvious Nancy was not going to be silenced, but Olive didn't have the time to stand around on her spotless step that had been scrubbed only that morning, and she didn't want to hear Nancy's views on how Tilly should or shouldn't behave.
I said to Mrs. Denver, the way these young girls carry on these days, running around fast and loose.
I hope you are not insinuating that my Tilly...
No, of course not.
Nancy patted Olive's arm.
Certainly not your Tilly. She's a good girl, she is.
Nancy shook her head, making the steel dinky curlers under her turban scarf rattle. If Olive had been mean-minded, she might have wondered how Nancy managed to keep the curlers from going for scrap, along with every other superfluous household item, to be used in the war effort, to make aircrafts for the RAF. But she wasn't that way inclined, and the irrepressible Nancy had started again.
I was just saying to Mrs. Denver, it's not right. It's not the way we behaved when our chaps were at the front in the Great War.
Great War? Olive spluttered. What was so great about it? She almost spat the word, she was so angry now. No war is great, Nancy. Young men dying is not great. Losing loved ones is not great. Yet you seem to wear the war like your own personal badge of honour. Olive took a deep breath, knowing she was in danger of saying things she would later regret. But the milk of human kindness would sour in Nancy Black's breast, she was sure, and she didn't know how she stopped herself from saying so. However, taking a deep sigh, she was immediately sorry for the outburst she had kept locked inside for so long. Nancy would try the patience of a saint. Everybody knew that. My Tilly knows how to behave, she said determinedly. It was not her place to go taking it out on Nancy just because she was upset at not seeing Tilly much lately. When the girl told her of her plans to spend a few days with Drew, Olive had been shocked initially that her unmarried daughter would contemplate going away for a few days with her young man alone. Yet she knew Drew was a level-headed young man, and he would keep Tilly as safe as was humanly possible. Olive was convinced that nothing untoward would take place, unlike her narrow-minded neighbour who only saw the wrong in people, it seemed. Olive had consented to Tilly and Drew having a short holiday because she didn't want any more of Tilly's strained silences. She didn't like it when she and her only child were at loggerheads. She wasn't used to it. Also, Olive had to think of the effect it had on the newest member of the household. Sally's baby half-sister depended upon them all so much now, after her parents had been killed in an air raid in Liverpool, and she'd had to be brought to London by Callum, who had been Sally's sweetheart before his sister married Sally's father. It was complicated, Olive knew, but luckily, the child was now blissfully unaware of the circumstances behind her move to Article Row. Thankfully, Alice was the least of Olive's worries at the moment. It was becoming more and more difficult to satisfy her pristine requirements around the house, with cleaning utensils being rationed and requisitioned for the war effort, and with dust and